For the record. Hear from your government officials, independents, and the opposition on issues that matter to you.
For the record.
Engage in an open dialogue between residents and lawmakers.
For the record.
For the record. For the record.
Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record. And now, your host, Art Connor.
Good morning and welcome to the program. Whether you're here in the Cayman Islands or listening overseas via the web. I'm Art Connor, also known as OC, and I'm your host today. You're listening to a relatively new show on Radio Cayman 89.9 FM. The show is For the Record, on every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. It starts at 7:30 a.m. and runs until 9 a.m. For the Record is about giving you the latest information on important issues of the day, issues that may in some way affect you and your families, your business, or your job, if you have one. For the Record is about you, and I want you to call me with anything that's on your mind. Are you worried about the budget and that what's in it won't be able to ease the pressures on your pocketbook? Are you worried that despite a budget of over $600 million, that not enough money is directed towards you and your community? Call me on 1-800-534-8255 or email me at fortherecord, all one word, fortherecord at Candy Wacky. 1-800-534-8255 is a toll-free number, and there's always someone standing by to take your calls. Now, folks, today in the studio with me is a man who needs no introduction in the Cayman Islands. He's the leader of the opposition, the Honorable W. McKeever Bush, and MLA for the District of West Bay. I will be putting lots of important points to him, and you are also welcome to do the same. You're asked, if you call, to be courteous and respectful when you do call in. Good morning, Mr. Bush, and welcome to For the Record. It's been a long time getting here, but you finally made it, and thanks for coming.
Several attempts. I'm pleased to be here. We await to see what the outcome will be. Very important things to discuss, and I am on a regular show every week. The opposition is on Rooster, and I am pleased to be there. And this morning, in being here, I pick up where I left off there Wednesday on the topical issue of the expenditures for travel and promotion, entertainment, and so on.
Isn't it great, though, in the Cayman Islands that you have so many different platforms that you can get your message out to people? You mentioned you have another talk show.
Yeah, look, when I hear people talking about, and not today, because you're not going to find so much of that today, because my grassroots support don't call into radio. But other people over the years, when I look back on my last 4 years, which I consider was one of the roughest periods for the world that I know about in my 59 years, and certainly one very, indeed, might not be the roughest period, because our grandparents and parents went through a whole heap, much more than me and you would ever know. But certainly for modern times, the last 4 years has been very, very hard for Caymanians and for government. And when I hear people talk about the loss of democracy and who was being undemocratic and all these sorts of things, I just have to wonder if they understand, if they read, if they ever go on the world stage to see what's going on there and compare what's happening in Cayman. Even in our small legislature, where people say, oh, people are misbehaving and this, have they ever watched, have they ever looked, have they understood parliamentary procedures to understand that our parliament, our legislature, because we're not a parliament, we're a representative legislature, how well behaved, how well attended, how much work we get done in comparison to others. When you see outright fist fights, when you see all sorts of things that in the Commons, the birthplace of so-called democracy, in the House of Commons in Westminster in London, and in other parliaments. No, we don't need to take any example off of them other than to say we are doing better. And so, yes, I'm very, very pleased that there, Cayman, you have so much opportunity for freedom of speech.
I'm told that we have one caller on the line already, so the phones are starting to light up.
But I like to open up, and this is going to be my stage to open, and then I'll take calls, because I as the opposition on here, I come to, if I can answer questions, I will. Certainly, and being on a radio show, I would expect that, but I certainly come here this morning, and I am going to address, first of all, the Auditor General's report, and then I can take calls.
Okay, our caller is going to call back. Yes, the Auditor General did issue a scathing report last month in relation to travel expenses, the management of travel and hospitality expenses, and did make, I think it was 11 recommendations, from his report. Now, it is customary for when an audit is done, for some feedback to be sought from those persons who are affected by the audit and whose entities have been audited. Was that courtesy extended to you by the Auditor General's office?
No, and it never has been, it never is, on so much unlike all the other audits that I've ever been and seen done in 30 years that I've been involved with government. Those audits, that's what's all about, is a two-way street. But let me begin. The people had better realize that this present Auditor General came here with a mandate to make civil servants and politicians look like incompetent, first of all, and prove that corruption exists in everything civil servants do and politicians do. No different than those who showered the hate on the investigations into the police, the judiciary, and which amounted to nothing yet, costing us well over $15 million. That's their modus operandi. All he has done is to demoralize the civil service and civil servants and try his best to demoralize me, and I deal with myself right now because I have stood up against them for several governors, show them up for what they were, show the world and Cayman that they are not above the law, and yet the things that they tell us that we must do, they are not complying with themselves. And I would not do for them what they are not doing up there themselves, yet they want Cayman to do so.
Of course, Auditor Generals are not necessarily the most popular people in any jurisdiction. When you look, for instance, at our next-door neighbor, Jamaica, and Greg Christie, whose office was the contractor general as opposed to the auditor general. But he wasn't a popular person over there either, but yet we see him being invited to various transparency forums and stuff like that, but simply because they vouch for his credibility.
Well, I don't know if that's so or not, because I didn't pay much attention to that situation. But I do know what obtained here. And I know in the past, yeah, we've had our wrangles and jangles and various governments. But when they sit down and do an audit and they go to civil servants, they come to you if you are talked about or if your department or your ministry is talked about. They have not done that with me. They have not done that with me. Maybe early in his early day, he did come to me when he was introducing himself. And I think they came once about something, one out of all the scathing things, and the way he's right. Listen, I am nobody's fool. If they can want to take me so, that's their problem. Anybody can call me anything they want. But I happen to know what obtains in this country. And so what he has tried to do is to find me guilty in the court of public opinion. That's why they don't come to talk to you. They won't put it out there. They know they got an objective. They want people to crucify you. So, particularly me, that I have a situation that I have to go to court. And so they want to try me first in the court of public opinion. Let people say, see all this money he spent?
So you're questioning the timing of this as well, then?
Well, of course, the timing, the AG put out once again denigrating civil servants, coming at a very convenient time to draw attention away from the fire on the budget, which talked about they were giving people, let's give one example, they were giving people all this benefits and taking and cutting down the electrical bill, yet they had gave CUC, unbeknown to anybody, 3% raise in business and 1% on our bills. And so they knew that McKeever Bush would know things, because I can see through the whole, I'm not university educated, but I know the procedures, I know what they do. And they knew that they were also, the officials were also being heavily criticized, and rightly so, on tempura matters. So this was to draw attention. It come at a good time. I see where the premier has weighed in also, not talking about his expenditure, when in fact, OC, comparing $8.7 million for my entire government for 4 years, and comparing the expenditure of the PPM 2005 and 2009, which I just gave you a copy coming from the finance department, which I had, by the way, I had done from 2011, but I made no big noise about it. I know we got out there and said that Charles Clifford was staying in the Mandarin Hotel, and the premier himself spent all kind of money, and he think people don't know, but we can't get his credit card, you know. They won't give it out, but my lawyers will get his. That's what I want to tell him. And they're not comparing that. They're not comparing how many ministries I had, how many posts that I had, things that I had to travel for, which I'm going to deal with here. And also that the Ministry of Tourism at that time spent over $5 million together with the portfolio of finance, and which only spent out of that $700,000 out of $5,098,000. Portfolio finance only spent at that time $700,000. You'll see it there. So they're not comparing the two of them together, which I have amounted to much more, and then the 14 entities that I had to travel and promote, and business and tourism and otherwise for.
So you're saying that when you take all of those ministries and portfolios that you were responsible for and you couple them all together, that is what reflects in such a high number?
Yes. It's not what he has done, because they know Cayman psyche. Don't you think that while Caymanians, and I say this often, while we're fighting and cussing and blaming one another, they are benefiting. Elephants trample the grass while we row about fire ants. Yeah?
Okay. So, Mr. Bush,
they know the Cayman psyche. They know that it would look like McKeever spent that, and that's how they wanted to portray this. McKeever did this. McKeever done that. That's what they're trying to portray. It's not that all the civil servants, the Department of Tourism and various other people are involved. In fact, when I went on OECD meetings to Singapore, I think my ministry paid for everybody, including, I think, all of us was on that delegation. I think we paid for it.
Okay. Speaking of
Certainly in Hong Kong at one point, I know we did.
Yeah. Speaking
and
of
what happens, as you will know, as former cabinet secretary, that sometimes that happens. If I have a delegation going, sometimes my ministry would pay, or other ministers would pay. It depends on who's going, whatever, would pay.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of delegations, one question that I have from an emailer here was that was it necessary for over 40 persons to travel to Panama on the inaugural flight? Can you explain that, and who paid for that? Whether or not private sector?
They wasn't traveling for the inaugural flight.
Okay.
We were opening Panama Gateway. Okay. I took certain people from the industry. Chamber of Commerce, for instance, had a lot of business people on there. Chamber of Commerce was there themselves. And there were promotions going on. And the Department of Tourism took various people up from various sectors that we were going to promote, business and so on, to Panama. That's why the delegation was, and it was a government-sponsored delegation. Yes, it was necessary. We are trying to open Panama. Yes, not just Panama, South American gateway. So what we can do, half-hearted foolishness? No, you have to go with the right people and the right industry that we got, which is tourism and some others, of course. So several industries are represented, several government people, several Cayman Airways people, and people even from the Chamber of Commerce who of course complain. I'll deal with that in a couple minutes too. But, when I'm out trying to promote Cayman, which I did, I ran into Bermuda, Jersey, and other competitors in the same place, the same city, the same country, doing the same thing that I am doing. Jamaica, for instance, would spend to promote tourism, just promotions, much more than our entire budget. When I went to open up Hong Kong, Jamaica already had, because we lost time between 2005 and 2009, when I had already started, they withdrew everything, Jamaica went in, and they had something like 22 people in their whole promotion up there, directing business to Jamaica. And so you think that we don't have competition? What are we going to do? Sit back here and expect to do it on what? On Radio Cayman? Who we reaching? You think we can do it on Rooster? Who we're reaching? We have to go where the business is at. From New York to Nassau is $99. From New York to Nassau is $99 airfare. We had to travel to promote. In the United States, their citizens can drive from city to city. We, from getting to Miami from here, Miami to here is $400 alone, much less going from another city to Miami to get to here.
And in the absence of having overseas offices in those jurisdictions, that made it even more necessary for you to travel?
Necessary for civil servants to do their job. And the people, the thing that, and it hurts, because what hurts is those people that call me a fool, that try to denigrate me otherwise, yet they are the people out there that are benefiting. And I want to come to that, and I know that we are already well into the show, but I haven't touched the Auditor General yet. But I am talking surrounding the things that he has reported on. And if he sat down with me from the very beginning, instead of trying to demoralize civil servants and to denigrate me so that he puts and carries on Duncan Taylor's job, then it would be much fairer. He gets what is unfair about this is that he gets this report without the two sides and then sends it to the public. We now got to go to Public Accounts Committee, and we can pull him in, and we can pull in civil servants and get both sides of the story. Mm-hmm. However, by that time, Caymanians have already formed their opinion on whomever he's writing about. He wrote that I spent $5,000 on prayer meetings in West Bay. Now, I don't know of any prayer meeting that we would have paid for in West Bay. God, those are free. Now, I do recall that at one point the National Prayer Breakfast did not have their funding in place, and my ministry gave them $5,000.
Okay. And can you explain to our listeners the allegation of the $10,000 retirement party for senior civil servants?
I think up until yesterday I couldn't because I am going now to try to find out these things after he's gone and talked to people, and didn't talk to me, and I didn't get a chance to talk to them. I found out that there was a retirement party for Mr. Powery, and they didn't have the funds. So finance, my ministry paid for it, but that's customs.
Because customs fell under finance?
Fell under finance. And so we could give up the money to have that. But you can tell me, and the Chamber of Commerce want to tell me, that I can't spend $10,000 or whatever it is, and I don't think $10,000 was exorbitant for a civil servant who spent 40 years in this country heading one of a department that brings in about 70% of our revenue. That's wrong? No, I don't think it's wrong. I know the Chamber might say it's wrong, but the Chamber will do that. You see, the Chamber complains about the civil servants, right? And they'll complain about, and I see where the manager chimed in the other day, and he's made it front page, and also he's made it all around, crying that he wants this and he wants that. What they don't remember is the $200 million that they lost, their members lost, out of the public's pension between 2005 and 2009. $200 million of the working man's money was lost on Wall Street or wherever they lost it. That was audited. You don't hear nothing about that. No, that's business. That's how business go. Well, how do we get business for them? They have benefited. The Chamber of Commerce members have benefited more. Who benefits more? I should ask, who benefits more out of government's promotions for financial services and for tourism than the Chamber members? Who? And they want to criticize. Now, as I said, anything can be improved, and where we can make improvements, and I see where they're saying that they're making these rules now, but the rules that we followed were the ones that was existing all the time. You go to Cabinet, you get your funding, you put up your case to the Budget Committee, you get your funding, that's cut or improved, whichever is necessary, goes to Cabinet, is finalized with the Governor and everybody else there. It is then sent to the Legislative Assembly, and then the Legislative Assembly passes that money, and is spent on promotion, is spent on travel expenses, and so on. What do they expect? Oh, see, you know, as the former cabinet member, cabinet secretary, I refused many things as the first premier, and I was told, and I have the papers that were sent to me by protocol, you are the first premier, you have to set the benchmark. Well, when we found out, I was getting less as a minister and as a premier than some civil servants were getting per diems. You knew that.
Precisely.
And so that was increased for me for different points. You know also that I was offered, because we had no official residence, I was offered $5,000 a month for rent. That's in a letter to me. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I will get some services, as was the customary thing to offer around the various overseas territories. And so Cayman did, I guess, some of what they did, because we didn't do everything that some of them get. You know, I was told I had a house, I could get my travel, I could get my security overseas, my security here. I didn't get any security overseas. I had, in fact, the governor and the commissioner refused to give me some. I didn't get any. I had to buy that separate. And some of this cost is that, for instance, the cost for the transport in Florida was coupled with security. The people that were providing transport provided security also. So, you know, we paid twice for those things.
Of course, the Auditor General's office's credo is to promote good governance, transparency, and accountability in the use of public funds. So you're saying the funds that he's talking about, they were certainly budgeted for, so the monies were there for you to spend, and he is basically scrutinizing how those funds were spent. And you're saying that they were spent in accordance with the Public Service Management Law and the Public Management and Finance Law based on the policies that were in place at that time.
At that time. I don't book by travel. I don't say where I stay. I don't say what I travel in. The only thing I told them, I don't like low cars, so don't put me in a limousine. I'd rather go in a truck or an SUV, and that's why I traveled whenever I was abroad. So when they talk about limousines, I don't know, because if it once or two times that I drove in it, you can believe I don't appreciate it. So I didn't make them get me any. But you are completely right. Everything is spent by the civil servants who authorizes these things. I don't go do these things myself. You have a credit card limit, you spend on that. But that's authorized by the civil service and the bank.
Folks,
I don't authorize that myself.
Yeah.
But if you read how he put it, it looked like that somebody, at that point, I don't think he's saying it was me, but he rather say somebody, the way he put it, but people could read that was me, knowing that what they charged me with.
I think at some point in there, he lays it squarely on the shoulders of the chief officer in the ministry, because it's the chief officer at the end of the day who's to monitor and who has to give approval. It seems as if one of the weaknesses in the system may also be the fact that ministers, when their travel expenses and whatever expenses are being signed off on, that ministers basically sign off on their own. Chief officers sign off on theirs. If it's a head of department, then it's the chief officer who signs off on behalf of the head of department. But ministers are left to sign off on their own. Do you think there could be some other way? But it's very difficult to determine or to see who would be above a minister in terms of saying, now I'm going to approve this is what you spent. Yeah. Maybe the chief financial officer?
Yeah, but wait a minute. What you would do with me is the reason, for instance, credit cards were given, and I have said this, there can't be nobody doing anything wrong with credit cards, to steal anything from credit cards. Why we got credit cards in the first place was because people were losing the bits and pieces of paper, and so they came up with the idea of giving this credit card. So because you can't hide. Firstly, you got a credit card. That record is at a bank. If you spend on it, you can say where you spent or where you got money from off of it. You can't hide that, and nobody intend to hide it. So that record goes to the Treasury. The Treasury gets that record, and they send it up to the finance officer in the ministry or department. And that finance officer then goes through it, and they come out and say, is this for personal expenses or is this for personal expenses? When I got my credit card, I was told, Mr. Bush, if you take money off of this or if you use this, you have to pay it back, or government, for personal reasons that is, government will take it out of your salary.
Okay.
And so yes, that is the case. That is the case.
We're going to break for the news at this point. Folks, you're listening to For the Record. I'm your host, Dorit Connor. My guest is the Leader of the Opposition, Honorable W. McKeever Bush. Stay tuned. When we come back, we're going to take any calls that may be on the line. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. Thanks for staying tuned. I'm your host, Dorit Connor, and my guest this morning in the studio with me is the Honorable Leader of the Opposition, W. McKeever Bush. I'm going to quickly read a portion of the Deputy Governor's press release that came out yesterday in relation to the report of the Auditor General, and it's headed, Deputy Governor reports travel loopholes are being closed. The Deputy Governor endorses the Auditor General's recommendations arising from the recent audit on travel expenditures. The audit contains some 11 distinct recommendations aimed at increasing accountability and transparency, many of which have either already been implemented or are in the process of implementation. Deputy Governor Franz Manderson said, "To help sustain real change in the institutional culture, there needs to be timely and regular monitoring of travel expenditures. On the one-year anniversary of the new travel policy, I have called upon internal audit to assess compliance now that we have recognized policies and procedures in place." He went on to say also, "I await these results to better assess the impact of the current travel policy. In the interim, chief officers and I, as facilitated by the portfolio of the civil service, will next consider a policy to govern official hospitality expenditures." Mr. Bush, do you have any comments on that release?
No,
I'm not sure if you
I
saw
wait
it
to
yet.
see what I would say is what it says there, that there were no policies in place before, or they're changing them now. Because, as I said, whether they were policies or not, there were rules and procedures that the civil servants used that were used over a period of time. So what he's doing is changing. And you have to wonder why that statement just come out now. Well, it says in face of the Auditor General. I don't give this Auditor General any tremendous credit. If my contention with him, and if people don't see that, then they're blind. He has come here to do exactly what I said he's doing. To make us look bad, they bring in who they want. That audit office got 19 or 20 people and maybe one Caymanian in there. One. And I'm not talking about Cayman people with status, because anybody got status is a Cayman. I'm talking about people that he got from overseas that you can't get your foot in the door. And when they bring their people, they bring them from Canada, because Martin is there from Canada. He's Canadian. And he brings Canadians, and he brings Canadians, and he brings Canadians, and he brings the next one. And when they go to Cayman Brac, when they go to other places, they don't. When they present their bills to the Public Accounts Committee, they present, you know what they present? 70,000, 30,000, 40,000, but no substantiating evidence. I mean, him has had a running battle, because I'm on the Public Accounts Committee. Show me how you came about the $70,000. And he refused to do so. He tell me he's not doing so. He don't need to do so, because this is what they spent on a one-liner. They spent it. Yeah, that's the same thing they criticize our public servants for. So maybe there will be some improvements, because everything can be improved. So I'm not here to say it's not going to be improvement. And of course, the political directorate is happy, because the premier sees this as something Basham McKeown. He will jump on the bandwagon, and if you read the compass, that's what he has done. I will soon deal with him in a more political fashion, because he won't go scot-free with some of his shenanigans that he has carried on over the years. That I can tell him. But I give him a lot of time to run around like Master Willie. The per diems, you know that, as I said earlier, your per diems, you get your per diems. I was getting less than some civil servants were getting, and then they upped it and said, no, you got to bring this more in line to get your per diems. I use my credit cards, and I say what the process is, but not the checks that I was given. You will find that government did not even pay. Here's one. Here's a check. Here's a check that I didn't spend, and I lost several of them. My officers did a spreadsheet, showed the police that Mr. Bush is probably owed money, because this is thousands of dollars that he did not spend because he didn't get it in time. He lost the checks or misplaced the checks. I found one of those checks. Here it is. So that's the sort of thing that happens. And look, we are not machines. We're humans. I mean, Auditor General come in here and he got people in the Chamber of Commerce and others who will, is the old people say, father him to make it look like he is telling the truth. We are telling lies. But we are not machines. We are humans, and you misplace things. you don't remember things at time. Going through what I had, I was doing a ministry that excuse me, had 14 entities that I traveled for or did business for. I had subjects that now Kurt has, Wayne Patton has, Marco Archer has, the Premier has, and maybe it's 5 of them, but at least 4 of them got subjects that I had as one minister because we were short of 2 ministers. So I had to carry that load.
In retrospect, would you, if you had to do it all over again, would you do anything differently?
Of course, there are, as I said, improvements are always made in life and can be made. And certainly, there are things now that I see that we could do differently. Of course, you would do things differently. If I only had 5 ministers, depends on who they were, I would have to carry the same load, though. And that's what I'm talking about, okay. the load of work. But you know, if you look at what we talked about just now, in regards to how audits are done. Anyone not knowing or realizing the motive behind these officials is, I say, quite blind. To put out inflamed statements about people, that's what they do, without those persons being able to explain before it goes amongst to him and together with his officials that he had, as audits are supposed to be, is not fair, it's not good governance, and it's not good democracy. So, can improvements be made, as you just asked? Where systems are needed to be put in place? Yes. Where systems are needed to be put in place, where there is any proof of one person gaining an advantage over everybody else, correct it. Certainly correct it. But for God's sake, please understand what it takes to make the country do business and help make it successful. And that's not what he's doing. My job was protecting our economy, defending our people where I needed to do so, and growing the economy and growing opportunity. So I spend less than 1%, about 0.3% less than half a percentage. That's what the total thing is, to do business. And you say that's a lot of money? So compared to what? We have a $4 trillion industry that we must promote to get that $4 million. So I shouldn't spend less than
$4 trillion.
A half trillion, I'm talking about $1 trillion, yes. Less than $5 million in 4 years from 14 entities to promote, to defend, get business, and get opportunity for our people. They're talking nonsense. And they're not being real. It's the usual thing. They found something that they can write about, something that they can complain and beat up on people and make people look bad. And that's, sorry, but that's a long suit of what is happening in this country.
You're listening to For the Record. I'm your host, Orrit Connor. My guest is the Honorable Leader of the Opposition, W. McKeever Bush. The phone lines are open. You can call us on 1-800-534-8255 or 949-8037. You can also email us at fortherecord@candw.ky. We're interested in hearing from you if you have any observations or any questions for our guest.
You're talking about new procedures. Have they included the governor in this? The governor's spending? He gets $1 million. They're talking about parties that we must throw. They're having one on the 18th for the audit office, 30 year. That's a cocktail party. You know, you go down there, you usually have 2 bars down there open. You don't hear nothing about that expenditure, but they complain about me spending $10,000 for a civil servant, head of a department for 40 years. Huh?
It seems as if that's what the Deputy Governor has talked about now when he talks about official hospitality expenditures.
No, they're not contributing to the Governor's office.
And that'll also include the expenditures for alcohol as well. Any observations on that?
Yeah, when they stopped that, you tell me. They tried that years ago from 1988, between 88 and 92. They talked about it, and thereafter they talked about it. You not stop it. My thing is, how fair are they when they're talking about these various things that they are going to do? Look at the bias. Look at the biases that they commit. The governor's son is a grown man doing a groomsman job and getting paid for it. He lives at the government house. He uses our maid to wash his clothes, iron them, and keep him. He uses our house he stays in. He uses our chef to get our food. He uses our security guards to carry him to the nightclubs and back home. And to travel with him, something that, like I said, they wouldn't give me. Travel with him to Miami and to Jamaica. Our security. They use our police car, our governor's car, to take a $60 check to Borden Town. 2 policemen to deliver it. That's just some of the imbalances, you want to call it. No, that's not bad. That's not bad governance. That's good governance because they do it. They do it. Now, Mickey Bush is the premier. I must walk to France. I must walk to Germany. I must sit down in the back where I can't tend to my business and everybody looking over your shoulder, and you can't tend and do business because you need your space to do work. I don't sleep on those flights. If I went to those countries, I do work in between. And when I go there, I must stay in the Red Roof Inn. Well, they can go stay in the Red Roof Inn. The one thing I told my staff, I want a good place to sleep wherever you send me, and I want a safe place to be. Sometimes I have to travel with my wife, and she have to be there by herself. I want a safe place. I didn't get the security. They didn't pay for it. I had to pay for it. I took it off the credit card, and then I paid for it back. I gave it back. Every month, my staff say, here is your bill. These are the injustices that are going on in this country. People like the Chamber of Commerce is saying nothing about it. They push out their mouth and talk nonsense about who's doing what, and they need better accountability. They first should give us the accountability for that $200 million that they lost in our pensions. They need to check on these kind of things. But they're a business, so that's conducting business. That's good. Now, the Auditor General, as I said, where are the audits on what the governor spends? Where are those audits? Over $1 million. Where is it? Where is it? What is good for the goose must be good for the gander. But you see, there is now a culture, and you got people in government that is help promoting it, that politicians are to be elected, to be cussed, carried on, and of course, you get no benefits. Civil servants, you're just there to do your job. You can't get no benefits. I'm sorry, I don't feel that way. People that work and work long periods of hours deserve a good vacation, deserve a good salary, and deserve some benefits. And if the civil service of the country can't give their civil servants that, I am just sorry for those people who are looking for good civil servants today.
Other than the airwaves, what other fora are you expecting to raise these issues? Is it the Public Accounts Committee?
I will raise them in Public Accounts. However, I'm the minority there. The government, which carries the chairman, again, that's is unheard of in other territories because the opposition is supposed to have the chairmanship of that. But I am deputy chair. They managed to put me that. They created that and put me there. But I got no chance to chair it, They just got a name. So,
like chairing cabinet.
Yeah. If I get an opportunity in Public Accounts Committee, then they are going to have to answer to that. I know what they are doing. They're painting me as bad as possible and trying me in the court of public opinion. The oldest colonial strategy in their book used against those who dare to stand up against them or challenge them in any way and challenge their objectives and aims and objectives for the overseas territories. Thank God there are amongst my people a growing and a huge growing realization of what those officials are doing. So they can carry the Auditor General up there to UCCI and he can talk with his misunderstandings. But people see through it now. And more people are seeing through what they are doing. More and more people are realizing that it's one thing for them and another thing for somebody else. They can get the perks, they can get all the things that they don't want us to have, but you're not going to get it.
Okay. Mr. Bush, if we could possibly turn to the budget, and I know that our listeners on this end have not had the opportunity to hear your views on the 2014-2015 budget.
I got one more thing before I get there.
Okay.
I want to say that it is a downright disgrace, unfair to Caymanians, unfair to business, that the Hotel Alexander now have to close in Cayman Brac. I took a motion to the House while the House was meeting there to give the owners some hope within a fair time frame. Up until now, no meeting has taken place by that committee, and they don't intend to give that man any justice there. However, the cabinet, in the meantime, has granted 2 other marinas to the new developer on the Brac, who I understand don't have one local employee. Fact is that of these 2 marinas that they have approved, will do more damage than Cleveland's. One of those on the north side of Cayman Brac is in a marine park. One is on the south side, and they are cutting through more seagrass than Cleveland, because where Cleveland is stone, no seagrass there that I know about. And was based, that one on the south side was based on a piece of land sold by the Minister of Tourism's company, which property was belonged to a cousin of the minister. Now, I'm not saying that he didn't declare an interest. All I'm saying is the government is totally wrong. It is totally wrong.
Did this recently formed committee for the BRAC, did they have any input in the decision to grant these
No, and on top of that, Cabinet approved these without any environmental impact study, both of them, based on them understanding they claim. Yet they want Cleveland to go out and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to get an environmental impact study for what he's going to do there. That pond is stink. But I tell you what, is no stinker than the surrounding issues that have caused them 2 marinas to come in place. All 2 things stink to high heavens.
Okay, back to the budget now. Your opinion on the budget, please.
Listen, I've been there as minister several times, and I've been responsible for 4 years for the budget. I know the problems we went through. I found a deficit. Every time I went into government, the PPM left me in deficit, left the country in deficit. I took us out of deficit. 80 or 70 odd million, whatever it was, I turned that around, and we ended up, May last year, with $67 million in surplus, with a bill to come to bring close to 40 or 30 odd million dollars. So in total, $100 million. They can do some work now. I am not going to criticize the government over every little issue. Some of these are systemic and been in place for many, many years, and some of those ministers will try to clear the air. I see Mr. Osborne Borden yesterday trying to wiggle through some of the things. I don't agree with him spending $4 million or whatever they got budgeted for the dump when we already know what that's all about and what the cost is and done studies and so on it. So I don't agree with that. But I give them, I know what a hospital go through. I know what Synagogue go through in trying to help people. So I'm not going to criticize that. I'm not getting into that. What I do criticize is the hypocrisy of the government, who criticized everything that I done and in fact put stumbling blocks into everything and accused me of corruption on everything. And now they're getting benefit of it and utilizing those same things. So no efforts to change it.
So are you telling me that you would probably be more cooperative but even more so if they were let the bygones be bygones
You're not
and
gonna get that,
concentrate on moving forward, moving this country
That's
forward.
what I said. I said I'm not going to be in opposition as Alden was to me. I'm not going to make a mountain of. You look at what he said in his papers today. He said something about casinos, making people believe that that's where government money was spent. Government money is be spent in casinos. When we go to Dima, and you go when you go to Dima, which is Las Vegas, is a favorite place of Dima's, and other tourism meetings. Favorite place. We gonna stay there. If you're not staying in Bellagio or one of them, or if they want to send you to the Holiday Inn, all got casinos.
Mm-hmm. The minister.
I never spent government money though, on me in casinos. And that's why I want to get them into court, because that's where it's going to be proven. So he can go make his statements. That's different. He thinks that might be criminal, but breaking a woman's arm up and having to pull somebody off of Cayman Airways, they're not criminal. Of course it wasn't, because you never heard nothing about it. You never heard an investigation about it. You never saw it. You know nothing about it. But Mickey, you know it happened though. Now, I ain't getting into being in opposition to him like he was to me, because that does the country no good. We don't need fuss and fighting, OC. We need progress.
And the public doesn't want that.
Some of the public want it though. Some want it. Some of them carry it on.
The majority of the people, the silent majority in this country do not want that, because they're not political animals. They are looking for what is best for this country. They're looking for what is probably best for them to make their lives much better. If
the government concentrate on that rather than trying to beat me into the ground, if they concentrate on getting the dock done, different now, they got to do it different from what they say I was doing, because they say if they go do the same thing, then they committing the same corruption that they claim that I was doing. So they got to do it different, but they got to get it. They got to get it. They got to get it. The dump fixed. But if they concentrate on those things, and if they concentrate on the new industries that I tried to put in place, listen, you understand, if we were doing oil transshipment here and some refining, that your bill traveling to and fro, your transport bill, would be little or nothing. Your electrical bill would be little or nothing. You understand that? No, they criticize me for that. They criticize me for a national sewage system, yet more and more we cannot use our well water because all our sewage is going into the ground. No matter what case it's in, it's leaking out. It leaks out into the dock, Georgetown. So if they had put that, 1,500 people would have been working by now on that national sewage system. I want the government to concentrate on those things. I want the government to concentrate on building as huge as for Cayman, new industries, because we have 400 or 500 children coming out of school every year. Where are we going to put them?
And what do you recommend as far as the surplus is concerned? Where really should that be spent?
Well, I think one of the things they done wrong was the way they done the civil service. There's 2.5%. We took the 3%, but the civil service agreed on that. Not Mickey who pushed that on them. It was either one thing cut, or take that cut in the salary, not send home 400 or 500 civil servants. I refused to do that. That's why England today pushed me out and did what they done, because I would not agree with them to sack 400 or 500 civil servants.
And the 3.2% that was originally given to them was basically
a raise that was given by the PPM.
Right.
And then they decided that they would give that up rather than see a load of people go home. A half a loaf of bread is better than none. But we told them that we would give the civil service raise back when the budget came better. Well, I done that, and then I had to take it back off again because of the fluctuating world circumstances and things not getting done the way I thought that we would get done and get revenue in. Then the PPM comes along now and said, we can't put it back, although they cussed me and said they were going to put it back. They say, oh, we can't put it back, although I left them $67 million surplus. They didn't leave me any. Remember that, eh? We were in a hole. We were in the red. So we had to find the money somehow. So they take that off, OC. They take that off. And they come back, and I maintain that those people that are making the less money in civil service, $3,000, $4,000 a month, they should have been given the top loads of money. Not those at the top getting the same thing that they get. Because at the top for $13,000 and $15,000, 2.5% means a lot. 2.5% to 3,000 and 2,500 means nothing. And that's my position. My position, it is hypocrisy to tell the world that you're taking off the duty. I said, put a motion in there, say, take off meaningful duty. I want more taken off. Government must be able to withstand that to bring down the cost of the electricity that we had to put on to take the country out of debt, of course, out of the budget, out of the deficit. I wanted them to take more off.
And we see a compass poll in today's Caymanian Compass that shows that 48.19% said that the cuts in terms of duty rates should have been much bigger. So the majority of people out there are saying that as well.
I can tell you this, not all the time I look at that either, you know. I look at what can be done and what is fair. And some people over there say things because they are business people and they want more and more off. I am reluctant at times about taking off duty off of things because there is no way that I can go into cost you less, or the government can go into cost you less, or any of the stores in this country, or Foster's or anywhere else, and say, no, you are wrong in your price, yet you have a duty-free item. So there's no way. And so government loses money. So here what is happening now. Government is losing $8 million off of the duty coming in on on fuel. But you're not getting anything done with that until next year, January, when your bill's at its lowest. All right? On top of that, government went and gave them permission to put on 3% on CUC, to put on 3% on businesses and 1% on our bills. Okay? On residential bills. So what benefits the people? The 3% can come right back to the people of this country. And it would have been better to take that $8 million and went and paid the bills. $280, $300 bill, $12 coming off your bill, $40 coming off mine. I would rather pay my $4 than to see those poor people that are in children that don't have electricity now, because there are hundreds of people who had, if not thousands, who had electricity and don't have it now. I would have rather government take that and pay the bills for them and then see somehow they can get those people working again to be able to pay their own, because government can't pay it every month, we know. But $8 million government can lose. You're not going to get the benefit of taking off that $12 off your bill and mine $40, because mine is $900, and those persons with $300 not going to get a benefit of that $12 when less $12 and less $40 for me till January next year. That is the hypocrisy that the PPM carries on.
Much has been said about your relationship with the UK. Can you relate your experiences with the UK, and in particular when it came time for budget approvals and budget preparation and budget approvals?
Well, see, the budget, as I say, was the worst timing in the world for me to be in office. My doctor told me, he said, you know, Bush, you needed to lose because you were under too much stress. I said, Doc, I said, you want to kill yourself. I said, Doctor, I'm glad I lost. Either I want to kill myself or I didn't want to kill me. Anyway, it was the worst time. In 2011, we had a budget. The first they tried to put on the whole taxation regime, and me and them fought. So the bad blood been existing from the Eurobank days, from Scott days, when I proved that Scott was bringing in furniture for his apartment and then charging it to government house. You know, hear nothing about that today, right? No, you don't. But that happened, though. Okay? Those kind of things, I had a battle with them all the time. I disagreed with them. You know, remember I took them to court on the savings directive, and we won. So they didn't like me. They still don't. They don't like Alden either, but he's not smart enough to understand that yet until they really give him a blow. Then he can understand. But for now, he's their boy. He's doing what they want. And we'll soon understand why. The budget came at the worst time in the world. In 2011, I left to go to Caribbean Development Bank meeting. We had arrived at our budget. And the group behind the rest of the cabinet was supposed to send it on. But they were not satisfied with the budget that we had produced. So they changed it all up behind my back, and they sent it on to the UK. UK rejected it. And I told them they wasn't going to give us no money to build no pile of things, and they had plenty for our own infrastructure. Not that we didn't need it, but I told them we wasn't going to get it. So I didn't put it in, and we had settled. They were just to finalize minor things. So the UK was not out to help. Every time we reached the budget that they told us that they wanted us to reach, they would, when you get to that point, they say, but no, but you need to raise some more money. That's what kept us having to, one day we say we were going to the assembly and announce it. UK said, no. You got to change this, you got to get more revenue. And that's why such a huge amount of revenue. I told the UK, I do not believe that we should have been trying to get that amount of money out of the country, out of revenue, when during a time when the economy was down. But they would not satisfy Duncan Taylor. He was a dirty, bad governor, determined to destroy me, determined to destroy us as a country, and people do not still realize it.
We have a caller on the line, so we want to take the caller at this point in time. Caller, good morning and welcome to For the Record.
Morning, gentlemen. This is from the record number 1 on the break.
Morning, number 1.
Good morning.
Uncle Mark, this number 1 in back foot.
I hear you.
Listen here. I want to tell you this because you know I'm a straight-talking person. If it wasn't for you, England would have done pushed down income tax and all kind of things on the Cayman people.
You don't believe that?
Okay, sir? And I'm telling you, you stood up strong to them. And for that governor you're talking about, I hope they don't send him back to Mexico. Okay?
Two was hoping that.
Thank you, caller. Thanks for your call.
Thank you for your time.
Right.
Bye.
Mr. Bush, you were going to another point just before we took that call.
So I certainly was always respectful to them, but I'm not a weak person. You don't think you're gonna just slap me in my face, and in that regard, you're not gonna slap the Cayman Islands and believe I'm present. I know about it, and you're gonna get away with it. No, I stood up to them. I would not agree with the things that they wanted. Some of them wanted that same-sex marriage here, and I told them, McKeever Bush is not agreeing with it. I said, I am a marriage officer, and I would never perform one. And I said, it won't be on my watch. I'll bring the whole Cayman Islands out against you all. I told them that in London. So they didn't like me for that. They didn't like me for the savings directive. And so they saw me as an impediment to their aims and objectives for things they wanted to do. Alden is now chairman of, not chairman, but he's on the committee, of this committee they formed about Islamic funds. You know how long we were doing Islamic funds here? You know that we went to Dubai and we work and have a partnership with them and a partnership with other organizations. There's nothing wrong with what we're doing. England now wants to get into the business themselves more and more, eh? So they want to control it more and more. After they control it, you think that they came on and get much of it? No, that's an effort. And what they do today, their strategy is, they don't say too much themselves as a politician, They get what they call academia, somebody out of Oxford and somebody out of this university, and they come and they lambast Cayman, talking about Cayman taxation and Cayman being dirty and all sorts of things. I've had it to deal with up until recently in London. But when I could stand up to that professor and say, you're talking nonsense. We got more regulation than you. And those things you were talking about is well regulated in Cayman. Are they well regulated in London? No, we got to understand that we are competitors with London, and their biggest business is finance, industry, and trying to get other business. Duncan Taylor, because you was a cabinet secretary, him and Donny Banks did not support Cheddar Hospital. And if I hadn't gone and traveled, some of the same travel they complained about, and seen what Cheddar was doing, and believed in Dr. Cheddar and his strategy, we would not have that hospital today, because I would have listened to Duncan Taylor and Donovan E. Banks. I said, no, you both have no vote in this cabinet. I traveled to London, Washington, to India. I saw it, and I believe in it. So The Prime Minister of Canada, of UK went down. He went to the same place. He said he would like to get it. He would like to get it. So we are competitors with them, and as long as that's happening, we'll never be on the same level.
Back to the budget. I'm going to ask you a double-barrel.
I've treated them with great respect. And when I went there, they treated me with respect too, you know.
Okay.
Because you know how two-faced they be. They treat me with great respect. But Bellingham was a very good minister. He thought and tried to give us leeway. But of course, they were pushing him, and we see finally that they kicked him out of the cabinet.
Okay. We have about 10 minutes to go before we close off on the show, and I'm going to ask you a double-barrel question, something that we shouldn't do in journalism, but because time,
You're a journalist now?
time is of the essence. Number one would be the turtle farm and the attacks that are being leveled against the turtle farm now, and how do we protect the turtle farm? The other one is, based on what you've seen in the budget so far and in Finance Committee, is there anything in there for West Bay, for your district, that you see?
That's why, let's start with the last question first. That's why I don't oppose budgets, because all budgets have things for every district. Our children get free education. Our children get mostly free medical care. We enjoy our street lights. We enjoy our fields. Every government puts money into that, some more than others. So I don't object to entire budgets. That's why I'm careful what I do. I don't make entire budgets look like it's bad. West Bay got some things. The only thing that I complain about, and I've been doing that for years, but for whatever reason, for 30 years I haven't been able to change it. That is, West Bay gets the road work in the rainy seasons when the machines can't work. But we get them done. And I've got a lot done. So I am thankful for what we get for our community. There's more that can be done, but you still have to say better. You have to prioritize better, and every government will have ways of doing that. And you have to, just be thankful that you can still get free education, primary education, and high school education for your children. I mean, and half decent. If you even want to call it half decent, I say in many cases very good health care, primary level care for our people. And we have to be much more thankful than we are. They criticize me, and I at times I do feel bad about some of the very unjustified criticisms and accusations and finger pointing that they did, but I ain't gonna do that. This is my island, and I don't need to fuss and fight over it. We need to get business done, get people to work. That's what needs to be done. The turtle farm, I had to go, that's another thing. I told the ministers up there, look, I ain't killing the turtle farm. I ain't agreeing with these people. Where improvements can be made in the handling of turtles, fine. But don't come and tell me that these people who, when there's other places that are eating turtle and doing all sorts of other things, that you can come and tell me I got to close the turtle farm down. And I'm doing so. Well, and I'm not going to agree with them.
What was Richard Branson's role in this?
Well,
because I know he did have an opinion.
They had Richard Branson piped up to come here to lambast us too. And when Richard Branson came here, he saw what we were all about and what we were doing. And they had a dinner for him at the Uglands. And he said, well, improvements can be made. He have to say that what is being done is fair, and he wasn't going publicly to criticize us. So those two things, I am not going to agree with them on. The only thing that Turtle Farm needs is what it was built, we spent the 30-odd million or whatever it was to renovate it and buy property around it and make it the way it is. It needed a cruise jetty to bring the people there on a daily basis or on a weekly basis. That has not been done. That's what needs to be done, and that's when the turtle farm can turn around. Until then, government can still have to maintain it. It was built with the intention of having a jetty there as nearby as possible. One a day, or one every other day, or 1-3 times a week will fix that problem of where government is spending that money. But also, I was not going to shut down 100 people, throw them out, and to save $5 million a year that government is giving it. No.
What about before? I'm going to ask one more question before I give you an opportunity to wrap up. The hot topic also is the privatization of some government entities, and we talked recently about Radio Cayman, and we believe that Radio Cayman should be a sacred cow, that it shouldn't be touched because it is the people's radio station.
For 30 years, I've held that, and I've fought, and maybe this staff don't know nothing about it, but they ought to come and see some of the battles that I've had to help keep that from happening, because there were people in the olden days, let's call it, my early days in government, who tried to do the same thing. The records are there, and I said, not with my vote. Radio Cayman is government, it must stay that way. There are certain things that government must have. I believe government must have the national airline, the majority of it, but where we can take in a partner to help safeguard pensions and safeguard business and get better equipment and newer equipment, I believe we should do that. But we must have the majority shares. There are things in government. The Water Authority can be leased with specifications that the staff be maintained.
Well, some people would argue about that now due to the fact that there's so many people who are having their water cut off, even by the Water Authority, and they believe that if it goes out to a private entity, that it will get worse.
Government can find ways and means to protect it. But remind you, water is another sacred cow, and I would say that in many instances, many places. So those are things that governments hold on to and governments subsidize. Electricity in Canada and plenty of places is what it is because of the numbers of people. It's spread out across a vast population, so your bill is low. However, government do subsidize electrical companies in huge ways. So we don't have electricity, but we have water. So that's one thing that we might want to hold on to. No, but I think I said in my budget speech, look, there is electricity, mechanical, and all these sorts of things, and maintenance. Those kind of things, government should take the civil servant that they got now and say, here's this business. Draw up a plan, and we're going to give you this for so many years. We're going to give you a contract for so many years, and we're going to help you have the right equipment. And I believe that while they're bringing down the cost to government because of pensions and health insurance, they will have to carry their own, those civil servants will make a good business out of it, and government will save money.
Okay. We have a couple of minutes for you to wrap up. Mr. Bush, final comments and observations?
As I said, look, I trust, because a lot of us are a student of history, that we see the shenanigans that are being played out with so much twisted information and misleading versions of the real facts, and indeed the hiding of the facts by these persecutors and would-be purveyors of their twisted version of good governance, the Auditor General and his cronies.
You sound like Shakespeare
So
there.
if they think the cops should be called, then we'll let them. My officials asked for the funds through the cabinet. We agreed. The Assembly voted those funds for the travel, promotion, to build opportunity and the protection of these islands in the overseas markets of our biggest and best trading partners, present and potential around the world, and the necessary funds for civil servants and elected officials to travel thereto and the entertainment of any investor or potential investor of these islands. I believe that we were successful. I certainly think that when you compare what I spent, what I did, the travel that I had to do, that the money was well spent. The country was in a deficit. I had to travel to Los Angeles, San Francisco, Boston. I got robbed in Boston. I didn't make the world know that because I knew what the newspapers would do with it. I got robbed trying to get money off of my credit card. Got robbed in London, and when I went and get it from the machine, I had to use governments. And I got robbed. Anyway, to Boston, to New York, then to the UK, Hong Kong, and Singapore to get bonds. Okay? When this country was going belly up, Then I had to travel for financial services with lots of conferences all over the world and speak at those conferences to protect and take information that was being used against Cayman to say you are wrong. Here it is. The OECD matters to be compliant and sign many of the 27 tax information exchange agreements that we have with such countries as France. I went there 3 times. I had to go to Germany, had to go to Holland, also to Washington, D.C. and to London to get those things signed. Then I was responsible for regional affairs, if you remember, OC. Regional affairs, I traveled to several countries in the Caribbean. I had planning that I traveled for, Cayman Airways Matters, airports, seaports, the Turtle Farm, the Cayman Island Development Bank, and I was chairman of Caribbean Development Bank, both of which required travel. So our people had better figure out exactly what those like the Auditor General is doing to the civil servants who are honest, hardworking, and people of integrity. The President Auditor is himself responsible for making these islands lose close to $60 million by making our efforts to get a loan for $185 million at 3% look real bad. The same thing he's doing today. We are now paying $55+ million more, okay?
Folks, you've heard it here on For the Record. My guest was the Honorable W. McKeever Bush, Leader of the Opposition. I am your host, Orrit Connor. I leave you with these few words. Remember, we are our brother's keeper. If you can perform a random act of kindness today, we need to look out for those people who are at risk, who are more vulnerable in our society. Right. We have a long weekend. We won't be here on Monday morning. We will be back on Wednesday when we will have the independent members here with us. Thanks for listening in and have a great weekend. Thank you, Mr. Bush, for appearing on our show, and we look forward to having you back next week.